Welcome to day 105 of the 300 movie challenge. Today we watched the highest grossing film of February 2003, which was Daredevil. Oh boy.
It wasn't as bad as the last one.
No, but
No.
I did not expect Evanescence to come up during
Wake me up inside.
That was,
the
when played in a scene that didn't even make any sense. Like she's like cutting down like sandbags. Like, okay, like I don't know. So like, why is this
It
happening?
was to capture her despair
Oh my
I
god.
mean,
and
the
how
whole movie
deep
was
it
supposed
is.
to be an edgelord movie, basically.
See, the
Yeah,
thing
it
is,
was so deep.
like I don't even like dislike that song or like some of their other songs or also like this song that was actually for the credits. Like I've heard that before or whatever. But it's like the context and how it's used in terms of like setting the mood and crap like that. Yeah, it's so like, you know,
Mimi?
yeah, no, it's like artificially emotional in a way that like doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's like, ooh, look how cool we are, and it's like you're cutting sandbags. Like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? It's stuff like that where it's just like, and again, the music like it just doesn't really fit what's happening, and then oftentimes it'll like just come in at really random points, and it's
There were
like,
some really weird tracks in this soundtrack.
yeah,
It was like, I don't even know how
I
to
think at
describe
one point Nickelback was playing in the background.
maybe
Was it?
I don't
Oh,
know.
that was
there was
Nickelback?
something that sounded similar to them, but I'm not sure if it was them or not.
And then there was this weird, like, fusion country, like, songs, like, two of them or something. We were just like, what?
There was an Irish one where, well, not Irish, but it mentioned Irish, and I feel like that was just to bring the point of the guy Bullseye being Irish.
Which like didn't
Which
matter
is-
at all, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
not
It's-
important.
But yeah, and again, it wasn't even so much like the music itself; it was just how it was used. It just like came in really awkwardly a lot
Yep.
of the time. It
It
was,
was so bizarre.
yeah. So
Oh yeah, this was another movie that used a very long flashback.
Oh yeah, like right after the last one. We didn't actually
Yeah, no,
realize
like-
that this was a
Yeah.
flashback.
like
though.
80% of this movie was a flashback.
It was
and
just like,
and there was
what?
no again, like the last one also, there was no reason for it to be a flashback. It doesn't add anything. It's just like, and I mean, I guess this is a little bit. The thing is, how the flashback is shown, it's not like you therefore know like what's gonna happen, but at the same time, the part in the beginning that's not the flashback is so brief and says nothing that it's like, what's the point of it?
Yeah.
Why not just
At
start
least
at
Just
the beginning?
Married gave a little bit more of a thing, but
I guess.
even that's saying very little of Just Married.
Yeah.
We're off to a great start.
Oh my god. I mean, okay. Let's talk about the big thing about him being blind because I have things to say about that.
Yeah.
I was like on purpose trying to see like how he was acting and stuff to see if it felt like realistic for someone who's blind. And the problem is that that's hard to do because the basis is that all of his other senses are like way better, especially his hearing, which by the way, that's not true. So like don't, you know, why that's a thing about like, oh, all blind people have like amazing hearing. It's like no. But and like the thing where you can like hear sounds and like you can like echolocate. It's like yes, humans can do that, but it's obviously not to the degree that they're showing. But even then, it's not like it's something like, oh, you have to be blind to be able to do that. You don't. You can train yourself to do it. It's just if you can see, there's no point to do it, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but anyway, but because of that issue, it's kind of hard to focus on it because when he's walking around and it may not seem like a perfect representation of someone being blind, you have to remember, well, but he can kind of see his environment around him because of the hearing, so it's like, how does that, you know what I mean? So it's kind of awkward in terms of like actually analyzing it. So instead, there was more so like, well, there were two things in particular. One thing is really dumb, like when he was like in like the courtroom or something and the guy was like showing him to a chair and then he like sits on like the other wrong side of the arm and like falls on the floor or whatever. Like,
Oh yeah.
he should have figured that out because that's just stupid.
Yeah.
So that was him being dumb. Like an actual blind person wouldn't do that. And then Oh, the other thing was his cane. There's two things about his cane that bothered me. The first was, like, in the beginning when he was a kid, he, like, gets in a fight with some, like, bullies who, like, don't make any sense, but whatever. And he, like, used it to, like, whack him in the face or whatever, and I'm like, and he, like, doing all this fighting with it, and I'm like, literally the first hit would have broken it. Like, those canes are not strong, okay? Like, my girlfriend has broken several just by, like, running into things or whatever with them, so it's not like they're sturdy pieces of stuff. I kind of give it a little bit of an excuse when he's older, because you could argue that, like, oh, it's his weapon, so it's, like, especially made to be tougher, right? So, okay, fine.
Yeah.
But when he's a kid, can't be what's happening, so it doesn't make any sense in that regard.
Yeah.
But his cane is way too small. Like, that's my biggest problem, is that it's way too small. They're supposed
Is it supposed to be much larger?
Yeah, they're supposed to be that when you stand up straight, it goes from the ground up to, like, it's a range. It can at least up to your shoulder, and if not, up to, like, your head, like your temple.
Mm-hmm.
That's the usual height. And for him, when he's walking around with it, he basically has to have his arm, like, all the way down for it to get to the ground. And you're not supposed to do that, because the idea is that you're supposed to have it out in front of you so that you can actually use it to feel out in front of you instead of, like, right in front of your foot, right? You want, like, a couple feet in front of you so you know it's coming up before you get to it. So, you know, it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's probably an aesthetic thing. It probably looks better in terms of, like, shot composition or something, but I don't know. It's just kind of like, whatever. But, I don't know. I will say, there's, like, one scene that I actually like in this movie, where it's when he first, like, gets blinded, and then he, like, wakes up in the hospital, and he gets, like, overwhelmed by sound.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I kind of like that scene, just how it, like, showed just kind of, like, how he's totally, like, what the fuck is going on, and, like, how he's being, like, assaulted by
The
noise.
child actor is actually not too bad.
Yeah.
He's pretty
Usually,
good.
the child actors are kind of when they're portraying, like, their younger selves and stuff, but yeah, this case it was pretty good.
Yeah. So I like that scene. Besides that, though, I don't know. There's nothing really... I mean...
I don't understand
What was up with
the
this
point...
coffin?
I don't understand the point of the girl.
Yeah.
Like, at all.
Just because romance, I don't know.
And then she
Because
just
we need
died.
that-
Because
Because we need that
the-
estrogen and then stuff her into the fridge right afterwards, right?
Gotta
The
get
thing
that
is-
frozen estrogen.
I feel like that usually when they're gonna die off or everything, they're gonna wait until at least the sequel to kill her off and stuff.
Right,
Especially
right.
since there's apparently is a sequel called Elektra, I think, for this movie.
Yeah, there is. So I don't know how that's... Yeah, I don't know how that's supposed to work. I guess it's like... Well, obviously it's not so... it seems pretty obvious that it's not supposed to be like a story sequel, but... Whatever,
By
I
the
don't
way,
know.
her name is so unfortunate because her name is Elektra and she has a daddy. You guys know the Elektra complex?
Yeah, right.
I was just
I actually don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so you know an Oedipus complex?
Yes.
An Elektra complex is a daughter who likes her daddy.
Interesting. Okay.
That was from another mythology thing where it was like Elektra and
That's-
she was like in love with her daddy.
Okay, yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, let alone the fact
And-
that her name, when said quickly at the very beginning, sounds like they're saying electric tacos. So
No,
it's
electric
like,
nacho.
nachos, not
Nachos.
tacos, whatever, fucking same thing.
This woman has like no sense of enunciation
Yeah.
at all.
Because it's Electra Taki, no, Nachios, right?
Nachos.
But they like-
Nachos.
But they always like swallow the I, so it sounds like nachos, and you're like, nachos? What?
Electric nachos.
It sounds so dumb.
Whenever they said electric nachos, I thought of like the Doritos, like you know the blue Doritos
Oh
bag.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's called the. I think it's the ranch dressing one.
Cool.
Yeah,
But-
cool ranch one.
Yeah. So that was the thing that kept popping in my
Oh my
mind.
god. Yeah, I mean, obviously this was like, you know, I had to borrow from the source material of assuming some sort of comic. But, you know, I mean, why the fuck would you write that character with that name in the comic? You know what I mean? It's just stupid. It's like fucking Jupiter Ascending, where the damn main character is named Jupiter Jones. Like, why the fuck would you name someone that?
Jupiter Jones.
So stupid.
Duck Dodgers.
Oh my god. I don't know. It's like the whole movie. I don't care. Like, that's the main thing with this movie. I just never cared about anything, and it did definitely seem to drag.
Oh yeah. And I guess the thing that made it drag was the fact that it was trying so hard to be deep and edgy, and I was just like,
nope.
So over
it was really lighthearted, and I got very conflicted and confused.
You mean with the sidekick guy?
Yeah, with the sidekick guy, and then how the apparent romance started off or whatever when he was like trailing her and everything.
They're like fighting in the park, and there's all those kids around.
Yeah, and I'm
like,
just
so weird.
And then he like sniffed her.
Actually, funny story about that.
Oh yes, is it your truth story?
No, not quite.
No.
Not yet.
Julie's actually said that she likes to sniff me. And she's like, so she's, I don't know. So I'm kind of like, So it's just kind of funny. I was thinking of that, and I was just like, oh my god. But anyway, oh, one thing that did bother me as well was at the end, when, first of all, okay, for all like the build-up that like they have in terms of like, oh, this bad Kingpin guy, he, you know, basically controls New York City, they kind of like go from him just existing in the background to I'm fighting you directly in like a minute. You know what I mean? It's like they're building him up, but even at the same time, when you get to him, it feels rushed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I felt like it would have been better if actually we didn't know who Kingpin was.
No.
Like, at all.
And then there was just like, turn the chair. Hello! As I'm stroking my white, fluffy kitty.
Hello!
Hello!
But okay, the thing with that though that was bothered me was that at the very end when he like, I guess spoilers, but whatever, he doesn't kill him, and he harkens and he says back, it's like, I'm not the bad guy, harkening back to the whole like, for some reason he got a little emotional because some kid was scared of him, which is like, okay, whatever. But it's really bothered me because he was like, oh, I'm not gonna kill on principle because, you know, I'm not the bad guy, that's not what we do. It's kind of like, it reminds me of a scene from Xenoblade Chronicles.
Which one?
On, the one with Metalface on the Sword Valley.
With Shulk.
Where he's like, don't kill him, he's one of us, or whatever, and it's like, you know, we're not the bad guys, and it's like, but he is! You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a conflicting moral position when this person is an asshole. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't get that sort of slippery slope logic if, again, there's a very specific thing where you know this person has done these very terrible things, and it's like, and you also know that if you don't do something, he will get out, and they kind of get into that point with, like, later on in this movie. And I get it if, like, you are fully established in that, like, for example, Batman, like, he does not kill anybody, period, and that's his prerogative, right? So, okay, fine. But
then that's fine,
But that's not established here, right? And he does kill that dude near the beginning of the movie with, like, the train, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, he does kill people, for some reason he doesn't now just because some kid was scared of him? Like, huh? It doesn't seem to work at all. So it's just kind of weird, and again, it reminds me of that scene from Xenoblade Chronicles, which is like one of the few scenes where like it's really bizarre kind of scene that just doesn't seem to work at all. I know Mai like really doesn't like Shulko's character, but
no, I really don't.
I like him. I usually like him at least like okay, but like that one scene especially, I'm like, what the fuck? What is wrong with you? But anyway, that's a different issue.
So, this isn't a Xenoblade review.
That said, they should totally make, like, a Xenoblade anime, but whatever. So,
maybe someday.
For 1 and 2. I have no idea about X. Anyway, I don't know. I feel like there's not really too much to say. I feel like I just like zoned out during this whole movie and I just stopped paying attention.
It was very dull, actually.
Yeah. If anything, I was
like...
just like, ooh, a meme song, and then I like stopped paying attention.
Yeah, it seems like this and Spider-Man were really dull for some reason. Were they written by the same person?
They're both They're both Marvel movies.
They're both from the same like weird pre-Disney, but also pre-Iron Man era, where the movies were actually kind of bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Spider-Man one's better.
Yeah, certainly. But they were both kind of dull.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything with the flashback thing in Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. It's just like, I just don't care. That's the main thing. I just don't care.
That's a good way to put it. Who gives a crap?
You know what we do care about?
Fish!
Okay, so this is like super random and obscure thing that I'm going to go into for this. And it all started because actually initially we're like, what the hell do we talk about for like fish related to this movie? Yeah. But then literally out of nowhere, they bring up how like one of their clients or something was trying to pay them in fish. And I'm like, wait a minute. So they like bring up fish for us for no reason. And so I got to thinking like, wait a minute. Fish used as payment. And that made me think about like Native Americans who supposedly use like seashells as payment for a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have two interesting things about that to kind of mention. I'm in like Northern California, and there's actually places where there are, like they're called like shell mounds, which are basically these like mounds of like shells and other sort of like they think that they were probably like garbage dumps for Native Americans or something. I'm not exactly sure on the anthropology or whatever, so don't correct me for now, whatever. But it's just kind of interesting that those are like some kind of still around to some degree in terms of like what was excavated, but also there are some that are like still kind of remains around in the area, or there's like pieces of it still there. So that's something that's kind of interesting. But another thing that I know from that is that the main accepted theory is that back thousands of years ago, when the sea level was lower because we were still in an ice age, the Bering Strait was land, so people crossed over from Siberia into the Americas. So that would therefore mean that like the last place to be settled by humans would be like, you know, South America, right? Yeah. But there's been some confusion about that, and again, I'm not 100% certain on this either, so you have to kind of look into this. But there's actually been some evidence that they found some artifacts in like middle, like Chile or something, like that kind of region, that seem to like date back earlier than like stuff north of them.
Oh.
And so there's actually some idea that like it's possible that some people actually sailed like all the way from like the Polynesian islands to like the middle of South America.
Oh. That's pretty cool.
Because they would go from like French Polynesia to like Easter Island, for example, and then from there to like, because you know, I mean, again, if you're talking about the South Pacific, like obviously to get to South America is a far distance, but like if you've already gone all the way to like Easter Island, you've covered most of the distance already, right?
Yeah,
right.
So again, Easter Island to Chile is a long distance, but it's still something that's like it doesn't seem completely impossible. So that's kind of interesting idea in terms of how that could work. And I'm sure they, you know, had some sort of like, obviously like fish-based like food and could be again like a sort of shell economic system. I don't know, but that's just kind of the stuff that I thought of when I heard like some guy paid using fish. So it was like, oh my god. But yeah, so
you brought up Easter Island. I remember like watching this documentary that was kind of explaining like, I don't know if this is still the theory for what exactly happened to Easter Island. I just remember how apparently there were a lot of settlers on Easter Island, but you know the statues and heads and stuff?
Yeah.
So what happened is that I forgot why they erected the statues, but they kept like putting up the statues and they kept making them bigger and bigger and bigger. But to transport them, they needed wood to do that. So Easter Island actually used to be completely covered with this one type of tree, but they basically deforested the entire island in order to make these statues.
Yeah,
Oh.
they're now
Populated.
yeah. So there were 0 trees on Easter Island at one point, and then that kind of spread out into causing other issues. And there was already like farming issues and stuff like that. So
yeah. So then everyone kind of
died.
They didn't have anything to build boats with either, so everyone was trapped on the island, and well, you can imagine what happened in that scenario.
Yeah, when I took AP Human Geography in high school, which I have consistently said that is one of probably the most important kind of classes you could take in high school, just to kind of get an understanding of like how things in the world work. But that was actually part of a reading that we did, and it kind of posited the question, sort of like the rhetorical, psychological question of like, what was the guy thinking when he cut down the last tree?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like I'm not sure it's not really that simple, but it's still kind of the idea of like, you know, it's because it's, you know, at some point you might not realize that, like, you know, what you're doing in terms of cutting down trees is like that bad, right?
Right.
Because especially like think about like deforestation of the Amazon or whatever. It's like if you cut down 1 million trees in the Amazon, like, you're not going to notice a difference from like space, right? You're not going to notice a difference. But it's like at some point there's going to notice a difference. So, especially again when you have one left on the entire island, you know what I mean? So it's like it's kind of like, how does that thought process work? And because, you know, maybe they did realize they were running low, and then they were like, oh shit, we have to like try to grow more trees or something, but maybe that just didn't work or something. You know what I mean? You don't really know. Right.
Yeah.
So, but it's interesting to think about, and how, I guess, people are kind of dumb sometimes.
Maybe they thought the statues were a little bit more important at the time.
Than eating. Another thing that I remembered off of that when you mentioned people being dumb is that there was a bird. I forgot what country. It's also in South America, but during the, I believe, 1800s or something, there was like basically all the farmlands in like Europe and America, I believe also like North American stuff, they were basically, through all the crops and everything, the soil was really poor and everything. But then sailors discovered that these bird droppings actually helped fertilize the soil. And these people, not really thinking too much, they went and like harvested these bird droppings, but while they're harvesting the bird droppings, they actually killed and like devastated the entire population of birds by eating them and everything.
Oh my god.
So it led to these birds actually being like one of the first protected animals by a country and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
So I just thought of that. I was just like, oh yeah.
How
that was
ironic.
a pretty dumb thing. It's just like,
we need to save
what
it
did
because
you
it's poop.
expect to happen if you like killed off all the birds?
Yeah, it's not like you need to kill them to get the poop.
Yeah.
So why is that stupid?
That's so ironic, because they were like, oh yeah, let's get the poop, but let's eat the birds that are pooping.
It's so
Yeah.
dumb.
It was pretty stupid.
Because clearly what you need for poop is you need dead birds to make poop.
Dead birds in your belly.
Oh my god.
So don't poach and don't cut down all your trees. Listen
Yes.
to the Lorax, at least the
Yeah.
book version.
Yeah, fuck the movie version.
Yeah.
Stupid orange turd.
With
Sort
a
of
like
agree.
hipster protagonist.
Oh my god, that dude's so annoying. Anyway, we're not talking about that movie.
We have
We're
like
talking
8
about
different
interesting
reviews.
things where you should save trees and not like do poaching. That's actually the lesson from Daredevil.
don't eat birds where you need their poop. There's your lesson.
Respect nature.
And don't be
Okay.
an edgelord.
Yeah,
Like,
because you don't need to be woken up inside.
Oh my god.
on that lovely note,
Oh Jesus! What are we even watching next? I don't know.
I don't remember.
It's some
Some
no,
movie none of us know about.
Yeah, that's what it is. So hooray! It'll probably suck. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.